Hi, Patrick. How are you?
Good and yourself.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, thanks for coming back on to Canadians with Disabilities and their Allies. It's always a voyage going forward, right? With the all these, I think they're going to table the CDB. I guess today they're going to be introducing the bill. So supposedly, so we'll see what comes out of it. I'm being very very cautiously optimistic. I'm not getting my hopes up about it. I still think, Patrick, that we need a basic income going forward, but hey, if they want to beat that drum and do what they want to do, then
I think it'll come in its own time. I mean, it seems like they really took advantage of the tragedy in Texas to push the gun agenda faster. And honestly, I mean, I don't have a problem with them getting rid of handguns in Canada. They're freezing, the purchase of handguns because you don't really need a handgun in civilian life, right? I mean, I used to enjoy shooting as a cadet with rifles and things and just target practice, but I don't see a need for everybody to own a handgun here in Canada, so I don't have anything against that. But I think that's been the focus for the week with the big announcement the Trudeau put through a couple days ago, and sadly, I think that overshadows other things sometimes. So I don't know if CDB is going to get its day in the legislature or parliament, or if it's just going to be punted back another day. Have you heard?
I haven't really heard too much of the updates on it. I was following a little bit of the announcement on it, but I guess we'll see what comes out of it all. But I think they have to vote on it. I was watching CPAC a little bit earlier, and they were having their question period in Ottawa, and Trudeau was talking about, well, all the Conservatives, they just want to vote it down. I mean, so that they can, we can have handguns and in civilian life, and we don't need that, Trudeau says. So yeah, we'll definitely see. Hopefully, they don't vote these things down. I mean, a lot of these important bills, they keep getting voted down, and then people get outraged, and it's like, wow, like, yeah, especially with what's going on also on the other topic of the pre-election. It's like the eve of the election for Ontario, and
Yep. Well, and the way it's looking so far, it looks like it might be another PC majority or conservative majority, which is not good news for people on disability because there's been talk about bringing in a private U.S. company to manage employment services in Ontario's ODSP and Ontario Works, and kind of bring in a workfare type program, which doesn't do any good for anybody on disability.
oh, absolutely, contracting out of a crucial service doesn't need to be in the hands of U.S. companies to handle employment services. They need to live the lives of people with disabilities, and if they're able to work, great. If they're not, then they need to have sufficient income. Which has been, it has been ratified into the Charter of Rights of Canadians with Disabilities, right? 12 years ago, and nothing's been put in place. Just the announcement of kind of like the shell of the program, but nothing's been put in. But hopefully going forward, hopefully
just
going
follow
forward.
words.
Yeah, it's words. I mean, words mean so many things, right? Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and then I don't know. It's something to be aware of because whatever happens in Ontario seems to echo across the country eventually, and with BC, what happens out there comes here eventually. So with the Conservatives, they're talking about making it so that those who can work, even though they're on disability, will have to do some form of work in order to qualify for their disability payments. So it's kind of scaring some people that are on ODSP, thinking that in order to qualify, you're going to be subjected to this new list of what you have to do to keep your benefits, and that's kind of scaring some people. And I don't think too much of it. I don't think it's a good thing.
Yeah, exactly. There's a lot of policies that are in BC, in Ontario, vice versa, that are very, very similar or identical in a lot of ways too. So yeah, no, you're right on that, Patrick, because what goes on in Ontario affects BC or vice versa. And I see a lot of the policymakers, they follow each other on decision making procedures, right? And it affects people's lives. And there's no reason why people shouldn't have a standard base of income to cover their shelter, their cost of living. I mean, or your basic necessities, your medications, the accessibility equipment. I mean, anything, all the above. Like, and
Yep.
then, and not even just at the basics. Like, I mean, have the, based on the cost of living, it's the lots stats I was shown is that it's pretty close to $3,000 a month. Like a lot of the parties in Ontario, like they're talking about doubling ODSP rates, right? I mean,
Yep.
and so if they double it, I mean, you're looking at, I think I saw, was it $2,700 or something? Because when they said they were going to increase the rates by 20%, right? And then when they double it, yeah, so you're looking at pretty close to that margin. So that goes to show that they know what the answer is at the end of the day of increasing rates.
Well, it all depends on which party you're talking to, because
Yeah, exactly.
the PCs are only committing to a 5% raise, and they didn't say anything about increasing it next year. They're the ones that have been in power since 2018, and they haven't increased ODSP since then. So I don't know what we can hope for, really. I mean, it's not looking too good if it's another PC majority, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And having rates way above poverty level. Some say we'll have it at poverty level. It needs to be above, way above poverty level, because the cost of living inflation is a 31-year high, and inflation's just going to keep going up a little bit by a little bit. I mean,
Oh
sure,
yeah.
there was an announcement today. Sure, they increased the interest rates, but the thing is, what Sonia was just saying this morning is that consumers are going to start dogpiling at the stores, because interest rates are going up. Well, they're going to start shopping big time, right? Which now is going to increase inflation. So I don't know, like the answer on the interest rates. I'm not an expert when it comes to all that, how inflation works, but I do know is that big corporations are the ones that are driving this, and they're making record profits and
Yep.
not paying taxes in Canada. Some of these big corporations, and that there's a loophole there, and they're getting away with it. So a lot of people will say, "Well, yeah, but how do we pay for a basic income?" Well, it's already there. All these programs and services are all. It adds to about $52 billion a year federally, like across the country. So it pretty well pays for itself. Maybe a couple minor tweaks here and there, like get rid of all the EI and the people paying the CPP. Well, of course, that gets clawed back anyway. But I mean, and that shouldn't. Any clawback should stop immediately. But a lot of it's all policy driven, and policy needs to be rewritten because it affects people's lives. People have the right to live in dignity and respect, right?
Well, yeah. In a perfect world, we'd all respect each other, and we have the right to live and not be in poverty, and have the right to have enough money to afford an apartment or a place with roommates, and that's not even possible right now. The other thing here in Ontario, when I went through the screening process to get ODSP, after submitting my paperwork, they met with me and they were asking me questions like, how much is your credit limit on your credit cards? They were asking to see how much cash advance I could get to support myself with debt, and that I was kind of offended when they asked me that question, because it's not like you don't pay that back, but that's how they were treating it, as an asset.
Well, Patrick, I remember one time they used to do reviews all the time in BC. They don't do that anymore. They haven't done that for years. But I remember a time where, they'd come in for a yearly review. Oh, you need to show 90 days of bank statements. And then they say, we need to know all the accounts that you have. And then they ask you to show how much money do you have in your wallet? Do you have any change on you? Well, I have some change on me. Oh, how much change do you have? So I deliberately just pulled out a nickel, and I put a nickel in there. I go, actually, hang on, I got a penny here too. Meanwhile, I had a couple more loonies and stuff in there, but just to make a point to them, I put it on there. I said, so I got a nickel and I got 1 penny when we had pennies. So there you go, I got 6 cents. And then she looks at me, she goes, are you kidding me? You have no other change. I go, oh, actually, yeah, I do. I got $1 here, but I got to use that for a laundry machine. But is that classified as an asset? Because that goes into my landlord's machine. But hey, I guess I can't put 6 cents in there too, eh? She goes, excuse me. Yeah, I asked you. I go, look, don't treat me like a child, right? I said, I've been through that. I have a mother. I don't need another mother. But thank you anyway. And she's like, you're being borderline rude, Brett. I go, you know what? If you're going to treat me that way, I would treat you that way too. I said, my mother taught me, do unto others as you want done unto you. She goes, oh, yeah, she got so freaking pissed with me. And so she said, so I need to see your bank statements. I go, yeah, right there. She's like, well, I need to see track of it. So you need to actually, it's better that you actually keep cash on hand. But when you put it in there, maybe use little jars. I'm like, oh my God. But, we can track things the other way through your account if that's easier. I go, I don't need to be tracked and monitored. But thanks anyway, though. Good advice. Yeah, I mean, that's how they treat people. And then they have a section on there. I think they originally, it would say, oh, do you have a warrant or warrant for your arrest? Every month on their stub, are you been incarcerated? Are you been in warrant for your arrest? I'm like, wow, is that how they treat people? Like, they gotta change their system, eh? But Patrick, it's been a pleasure having you on. I'm just so proud that, how the show has really developed over since beginning of January, how it's where it is now. And it's going to keep on taking off more and more. And we're going to see how things go after the election, too. I mean, it's going to keep going. But on what the results are on how the impacts it's going to have going forward. With the CDB, I'm being like a lot of the guests that come on. They're cautiously optimistic. Even the ones that are kind of involved with the on the accessibility part, they're in the same thing. Like a lot of it's not being talked about, and I think between you all, I think that some of them do know some stuff, and I have one of them that was on a guest speaker, and I know he knows stuff, but he can't talk about it, and I know that.
Yeah.
And that's Mr. And I mean, in case anyone listening to the audio, they're going to say, "Well, who, Brett? Who is it?" I mean, Mr. Prince, right? And I know he knows things, and I know he can't talk about it because he is on the committee. But he's frustrated because he wants to make sure that it gets to every single Canadian, right?
Well, here's hoping things improve. I mean, I guess if it happens in Ontario that it's another majority or even a minority, my concern is if it's a minority, then nothing will happen, because then it becomes the job of the opposition to prevent the PCs from doing anything. And I think that's good. They can't railroad us and destroy the system, but they're not in a position to improve our payments either. So I hope that if it's another blue landslide here, that the feds kind of bail us out.
We'll see what happens with the with the CDB going forward. I think we all know that they're gonna mess it up one way or another. I'm sure they're gonna bungle it up, but we'll keep putting pressure on them. But I think what I'm gonna do is try to also put pressure about basic income on them, and then they'll say that why are they all focusing on that? I thought they wanted CDB. Well, yeah, we do as a top up, but at the same time, if they're not going to include everybody, then yeah, it'd be something that we can all talk about as a discussion.